that we have had.
Just before I call the last member, this is a 3-hour debate. There's about 8 minutes approximately remaining. Jami-Lee Ross, I'll ring the bell with 2 minutes of your speech remaining.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's always a pleasure to follow the Honourable Minister of Police and Minister of Corrections, because she's a minister that knows the value of investing in the important areas that this government's doing. It's not something that the previous ministers in the last government understood very much, but it's something that ministers in the National-led government understand, and something that the Honourable Judith Collins especially understands. And we say thank you from the people in Botany for the extra police that are now on our streets in Counties Manukau, and the reduced crime rate. Something we never saw under a Labor government, but it's something we're seeing under a National government. Mr Speaker, I enjoy listening to these debates. I enjoy listening to these debates because it's so clear, listening to the Labor Party, but that they just don't get it. They just don't get it that the people outside of this chamber, looking in at the way they're debating matters of importance to this country, they just don't get it and don't understand that the people can see right through them. They can see right through all the rhetoric. They can see right through everything they've been saying about this government's plan to get the economy back. Mr Speaker, I think it's a bit uncharitable when some people say the Labor Party doesn't have a plan. I think they do have a plan. They have a plan for more spending. They have a plan for more debt. And they have a plan for more taxes. That's the grand plan. That's the grand plan. The grand plan is for all of that. More spending, more debt, more tax. They don't understand that out there in the real world, the people are watching the markets at the moment in turmoil. The markets are in turmoil around the world. The European countries are struggling with their debt. The US has just had a credit rating downgrade. The Labor Party just don't get it, though. They think that more spending will solve all those issues. Well, it won't. They think that more debt will solve all those issues. Well, it won't. It will put us in a situation where we would have a credit rating downgrade if we continued along the debt projection that the last Labor government left us with. It would be a shambles. And their grand plan to win the election, the plan that they think they can convince the voters to sign up to, is just more tax. As if the people in New Zealand really think that they want more money taken out of their pockets by the long hand of the government led by somebody like Phil Goff. Phil Goff, who can't really remember anything that he did in the 80s. I had to laugh when I heard Stuart Nash talking about state asset sales and the vast concerns that the Labor Party has around asset sales. Well, Mr Speaker, let me remind everyone here tonight that it was the Labor government of the 80s that sold a heck of a lot more in assets than the National government of the 90s ever did. $9.5 billion worth of assets was sold by the Labor government. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, Rodney Hyde. I'm just pointing out the sheer forgetfulness of the Phil Goff-led Labor government. The Phil Goff-led Labor Party can't even remember meetings they had a few months ago, so I don't expect them to remember the assets that they sold in the 80s. $9.5 billion versus $9.3 billion sold by the 90s. So when you hear people like Stuart Nash standing up, complaining about asset sales, just remember what their record is. Just remember what their record is. They don't remember it. They don't remember meetings held a few months ago, but they don't remember their record either. Mr Speaker, this government has done well over the last 2.5 years. This government was left with a decade of deficits planned for that the last Labor government left us with. This... who's that noise I can hear? I can hear an alarm clock going off. It's like a screaming banshee I can hear over the other side. What was that? What was that? Mr Speaker, this government has done well. And we're seeing a plan to reduce debt. We're seeing a plan to get the government debt back to surplus, get the government books back to surplus by 2014. I know it's hard to hear. But it's the truth. And it's the truth. It's the truth, and the people out there in the country understand it. The people out there in New Zealand, they don't understand the Labor Party plan. Well, they do, but only 49% of their own supporters support their plan. 48, is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've been uncharitable. I've given them 49%. Is it 48, sir? Thank you, Mr. Young. Look, the Labour members, the Labour supporters don't even agree with their plan. 81% of the National supporters agree with our plan. They agree with National's plan to reduce debt. They agree with National's plan to get us back to surplus. They agree with the fact that National wants to keep government debt below 30% of GDP. You should have seen, Mr. Speaker, the projection of debt that we were left with. It saw the figures going up and a never-ending increase. Well, this government, after the last budget that we just passed, sees that debt come back down. It'll stay below 30% of GDP, a sensible level to keep it at. European countries, as I mentioned before, are struggling with their debt. But if we were to have the Labour Party in power, we'd probably be ending up going towards a similar situation where we would struggle with high debt levels. High debt levels that would lead to a credit rating downgrade, and it would lead us back into the area where we had high interest rates for New Zealand homeowners. Mr. Speaker, I was one of those people that had to buy a house during the high interest rates of the last Labour government. Interest rates under the last Labour government peaked at about 11%. I was one of those homeowners having to buy my first house at interest rates at that high level. Well, now, Mr. Speaker, interest rates under National are at some of the lowest levels they've ever been, and we're leaving more money in people's pockets as well. The Labour Party just don't understand that. They don't understand that people like having their own money in their own pockets. We've got a tax system that rewards work, we've got a tax system that rewards savings, and we don't have a tax system that hurts people investing in core assets that they want to increase and look out for their own futures. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be part of this National-led government, and I'm proud to be the last speaker in this debate. We've got a very good story that we're out there selling. We've got a good story that people are understanding, a good story that people can see John Key leading us with as the leader of the National Party, one of the most popular Prime Ministers that this country's ever had. And despite what you hear from the other side, people like moderation, people like pragmatism, they like a carefully managed economy. They don't want to see more debt, they don't want to see more taxation, and they don't want to see more spending. Mr. Speaker, no, Steve Chadwick should really look at the figures. The debt will be kept below 30% of GDP. We completely reversed the situation the Labour Party left us with. We completely reversed it, and we've now got a sensible situation where debt will reduce and will get us back. We'll be back in surplus by 2014. Mr. Speaker, please speak in this debate. The people out there understand the plan the National-led government's got. We don't want more debt, we don't want more taxation, we don't want higher spending. That's what we get with Labour.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
57 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
42 votes opposed.
Green Party.
9 votes opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
5 in favour.
Māori Party.
4 votes in favour.
Progressive.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Mana. Honourable Chris Carter.
1 vote opposed.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 67, the noes are 53. The motion is agreed to.
Appropriation 2011-12 Estimates Bill, third reading. Imprest Supplies, second for 2011-12 Bill, second reading.
The Imprest Supply, second for 2011-12 Bill, is set down for third reading forthwith.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Tony Ryle.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Imprest Supply, second for 2011-12 Bill, be now read a third time.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote. The clerk will conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National,
57 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour,
42 votes opposed.
Green Party,
9 votes opposed.
ACT New Zealand,
5 in favour.
Māori Party,
4 votes in favour.
Progressive,
1 vote opposed.
United Future,
1 vote in favour.
Mana, Honourable Chris Carter.
1 vote opposed.
Any other votes?
The ayes are 67, the noes are 53. The motion is agreed to.
A second for 2011-12 Bill, third reading.
Call on Government Order of the Day number 2.
Non-bank deposit takers bill, first reading.